Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with two comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It's Thursday. That's right, Thursday, the last day of the week for me on the show, but not for the experience. We have a lot of great stuff going on right now. We are doing the 1-year anniversary Experience Expo, so we have a lot of extra programming going on this week, including this weekend, and there's a good chance I am going to be back this weekend. Not sure exactly when, but to talk about the Karma book, and not sure exactly what's going on, but Kyle's trying to set that up. But yeah, so I'll probably be popping up this weekend, plus there'll be another new episode of, new to the experience, of Pop Go the Writers with myself and Paul Story. So you'll want to stick around for that. We got a lot of great stuff going on. Also, today's lineup here on the experience, after my show, we have What's in the Box with Miss Jen and her crew. And that is a great show because that is basically, they go into the warehouse, they find a random box, they bring it in, they don't know what's in it, but whatever is in it is what's going to be up for sale. So it's a fun shopping show with a bit of surprise. So you want to stick around for What's in the Box with Miss Jen. And then later tonight, we have Kicking It with Omri. So you want to stick around for that as well. Just put it on the experience and leave it here. This is the show, or this is the network that should keep you all week long, especially if you're a writer, you're an artist, and you want to have something in the background to listen to, talking comics. That's this show right here. That's this the experience. So stick around for that. Earlier this week, we talked about Peacemaker, and the 4th episode dropped last night, so I will be talking about that on Tuesday. Also, next week, there's a good chance I'm going to have Cara Nicole come back on Wednesday, and we will be talking Kickstarters, as both of us have an active Kickstarter right now. And she's going to give some points on how to make a Kickstarter really work. So if you are someone who wants to do your own Kickstarter, you'll want to tune in on Tuesday or on Wednesday. And of course, on Thursday, we'll continue talking about the Book of Boba Fett as long as there are episodes. So yeah, big lineup next week. And we'll see how that goes. But today we are going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett, episode 4. But before we get into that, I would like to talk a little more about Karma, and I want to pay off something I had said. Now, Karma is currently running. It's a Kickstarter that I wrote. It's a 120-page erotic graphic novel. Oh, Nicole Fernandez interview coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Very cool. So you'll definitely want to stick around for that. Karma is a original graphic novel. It's a slice of life erotic romance that I worked on with artist Carlos Reynaud, who did some gorgeous, amazing interiors. And then the book, the covers for it, we've got Stepan Sejic, we've got Mirka Andolfo, that's Stepan, that's Mirka, and Michael D. Pascal. And there's a naughty version of this cover too, which you can probably guess what makes it the naughty version. But all 4 of those covers are available. We also have a digital version. We have some trading cards that are coming out from some of the interior moments that are the stretch goals. We've got 2 of them unlocked already. We're getting close to a 3rd. And then we've got other stretch goals in mind. We just got to push through to them. So please check it out. But I had said that when we got to 30,000, and we're currently at 35,000, that I would tell the story, at least a story that from my actual um, experience, that was used to make the story. So Alex and Karma are fictional characters. It's a fictional romance, but Karma is kind of an amalgamation of all these amazing women I've known in my life. Well, some of the things that happen to them are straight out of things that happened to me as a photographer, or in some of the unique situations I have been in. And I did write this up for my Facebook followers, but I thought I would tell the story here that that is used for a moment, the kind of a crucial moment for Alex and for Karma. Now, years ago, and I want to say around 2010, so 10, 12 years ago would be my guess. Um, I I hadn't really hadn't really done much at that point. I was writing full time, but I hadn't worked for Bleeding Cool yet. But I was following Rich Johnson on Twitter, and he had this unique opportunity. They wanted somebody from Bleeding Cool to go and visit the set of an adult film. Now, this was at a time where suddenly the adult industry decided, let's make a bunch of parody videos of superheroes. So they did like Batman 66. They were doing Superman. They were doing Justice League. They were doing all kinds of these. And one in particular was a Supergirl parody they did that led into also a Batgirl parody. And they were having a press day, and Rich needed someone to go. Rich is in England, if you don't know. Rich Johnson. So getting out to LA to go visit an adult film site wasn't really in the cards for him. And that was back when Bleeding Cool was pretty much Rich and Brendan Connolly, and that was the entire staff. I think Mark Seifert was still running the technical side of everything, and the big boss was still there, but the only guys producing for the site were Rich and Brendan. Now, he put out to see if anybody could go, and I thought, it's not that far from here. I have experience as a photographer, so going on an adult film set really wouldn't throw me off that much. I could write up the story for them, no big deal. Plus, I'm good friends with the guy that owns Bleeding Cool. I thought I'd help out. Yeah, you get the idea. So I volunteered and said, hey, if you need somebody, I can go. Well, he took me up on it. And, they had this press day scheduled. And the day of the press thing, I wasn't able to go. So it was kind of a last minute thing, but I had to bail out. And I'll tell you the truth, at this point, I don't remember why I had to bail out, but I had to bail out. Well, about a week later, I get a message from the production company. And they said, hey, we're really sorry you missed out on the press day, but we'd like to invite you out to the set for, you can do some interviews, you can take a bunch of pictures or videos or whatever you want. And we'd love to have you out there because we really would like to get some coverage on Bleeding Cool. And I said, well, I've got, next whatever free, I'll come out. So we set it up. And where press day was, they had the main character in costume. They had a bunch of sets put up. So everybody got the standard photos, Kara in the rocket ship to send her to Earth, those kind of things. What I went to was this house up in the hills in Simi Valley that was basically used for adult films. The guy rented it out. And it had a pool and a bunch of big rooms. It was a huge house. And everybody used the kitchen and the dining room area to kind of keep their stuff and to, be able to eat. And that was kind of like the break room and stuff. And then the rest of the house was used for one thing or another. There was filming in most of the rooms. There was still shot set up, with a backdrop and stuff so they could do the promo shots. But when I got there, I drive up this hill, and there's like houses on the street, and then there's a driveway that goes up and around, and there's another house here, and then you continue up and around, and then there's a house up on the hill in the back. Well, I get up there, and it's still pretty early because, they want me out there about 11 o'clock. Great, I'm there. And I'll stay in a couple hours. But as I'm there, all these other people show up, and the driveway gets completely full of cars. So my truck is all the way in the front, and there's all these other cars. So for me to leave would involve moving probably 15 different cars. So at that point, I'm like, I guess I'm hanging out on the set today until enough people leave that I can get out of here, because I didn't want to be a bother. So I'm hanging out on the set. I'm talking to different actresses. I'm getting interviews. I interview Sunny Leone, something like that. She's playing Batgirl. She ends up doing her own Batgirl movie later. I talk to the other actresses. I get some, when they're doing the still shots, I'm able to do some of the still shots as well with my camera. I got to film some of the scenes. And surprisingly, to probably a lot of you, I got really bored. Because there's a certain point while you're doing that everything they're doing is fake, that it just becomes noise, So they're doing a scene that involves, I want to say, a dozen to maybe 15 girls, 3 or 4 guys, and they're doing it in this like atrium area of the house. And everybody is around and they're filming it and everything that got going on. And I got tired of it. Like, yeah, okay. So I walk around the corner back into the kitchen, sit on one of the bar stools by the counter, get myself a drink, and just kind of relax. And as I'm listening, you hear this sound of the scene. And the only way I could describe it is one of 2 ways. It sounds like either zombies approaching or a swarm of bees. It's a very disturbing sound. And it's probably not so bad. It's not so bad when you're looking at what's going on, then it makes more sense. But when you're around the corner, not seeing anything, it's really bizarre. But so I'm sitting on this stool, and one of the actresses there is India Summer. Now, I had to look her up afterwards. As probably every guy will say, oh, I don't know anything about the porn industry. I really don't. I know some of the actresses because I've met them. I've worked with them photography-wise. Really don't know that many. But this one named India Summers there, and she's a little older than the rest. Not old, just, she's a little more mature. And she's playing like the dean of the college Supergirl is going to. And she comes walking into the kitchen area, the dining room kitchen area. And she is wearing this set of heels that are good, that big at least. And she's dressed, but not a lot. And she comes walking into the kitchen, the area that I'm in. And I guess she's going over to her bags or something. And the floor in this area is marble squares with grout. But the grout is kind of low compared to the marble itself. So there's these indentations all across the floor. Well, her high heel hits it wrong, and she starts to fall. Now, I'm in this swivel bar stool, so I swing around as I see this happen. I snake my arm out and grab her and pull her into me to keep her from falling. Well, at that point, she's now pressed against me, looking up, and gives me this kind of smile. She's like, "Oh my God, thank you." I'm like, "Oh, no problem, no problem." And I kind of release my arm, and she doesn't go away. So we have this interesting moment, and she's there, and and then we move on. So a little while later, the it's late. It's probably close to midnight at this point. I've been on the set the entire day, and people are starting to leave, and they're moving cars, and she still has a scene to do. So they ask everybody, "Well, make your keys available so we can move around cars to get people out of here." She comes out, gets her keys, walks over to me, says, "Here, in case they need to move my car, you're the only one on this set that I trust." Like, okay. Now, mind you, there's no way in hell I'm going to fit in her car, but I thought that was interesting. But so I stayed a little bit longer. We get the cars moved around. Suddenly my truck is free so I can go. I make sure she get her keys back, say my goodbyes, get down the road. I have to back down that insane driveway, by the way, and ended up scraping the side of my car. So there is a lingering effect here, but overall, that was my experience on the porn set. Now, I had a bunch of those videos and photos from the set. If you ever hear Raven Gregory talk about me, every once in a while he'll mention that I have porn on my phone. It's not that I have porn on my phone. I have some footage from that, and I showed it to him once, and it made his life from what just the way he acted to it. It's like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Now, they're not on my phone anymore. I'm about 3 phones since then. I don't keep that on my phone. But that moment of her tripping and me catching her, I borrow that for part of the introduction between Alex and Karma. And it plays well into the story. And that's the type of thing that those are the type of things that I've used from my real life, those moments, and there's plenty of them. That's probably one of the tamer moments of my life. But those are the ones that just I use to kind of sew this together. So even though it's a fictional couple, I am borrowing from real events in my life. And I've got enough of these events to probably do 2 more issues or 2 more graphic novels. So hopefully this book will keep doing well, and we'll get up to, 50, 60K is kind of what we're hoping for. So got a few more stretch goals coming up. Please, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, go check out the Karma campaign. I think you'll like it if it's like I said, it's on the adult side. It's an erotic romantic graphic novel in the same vein as Sunstone and Swing. So if that's your thing, and you want to, but it's also a good romance. So check it out, Karma, on Kickstarter now. JD will throw the link into the chat so you guys can follow it, and I appreciate it. And yep, there it is. Also JD says, as someone who delivers groceries in the hills, I feel you on the driveway thing. Yeah. And by the way, when you're in my Raptor, as I'm backing down, it took me so long, the camera kept cutting out. So I rely on my backup camera. So that's how I ended up scraping the side of my car. It's just a scrape about that big, about that wide, on the very corner of the tail of you can barely see it, but I know it's there. And it's been there for the length of time I've had the truck. So, all right, guys, that was, I hope you liked that story. That was a very interesting moment. And I would end up going on, I wrote the story for Bleeding Cool. It ran, it got some really good numbers for them. And I think that was part of the reason when they decided to expand the staff that I got reached out to. And I went to work for Bleeding Cool for 5 years after that, or, a couple years later. But so, yeah, that was a fun experience. And if we get to 40,000, I'll tell another story if you guys want. So, all right, let's move on. That took a little longer than I expected it to. But let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. And this episode is really interesting and not interesting. It almost feels like we've spent so much time in flashbacks and slowly setting up the story of him becoming the daimyo, the new crime lord, that it just feels like we could have gotten there faster. Did we need all of the flashback stuff? Is all of it important? Could we have moved through it a little faster? This episode picks up from after burning the bodies of the Tuscans to him going over to Jabba's palace and trying to figure out how many guards they have because he wants to steal his ship back. The ship formerly known as Slave One, now just referred to the type of ship it is, a fire spray gunship. But so, yeah, I guess there will be an official name at some point. I don't know what it is, but for now they're calling it the fire spray gunship, which makes sense because the Mandalorian's Razor Crest was the type of ship it was. They didn't, it didn't have a specific name. Yeah, the Millennium Falcon has a name, but Luke's X-Wing, Poe Dameron's X-Wing, none of the ships have specific names except the really big ones like Millennium Falcon or the Executor, those big, the Negotiator, the big ships that are like cities floating. So it makes sense that it doesn't necessarily have a name, but because it did have one, now we kind of want it to have one. So hopefully they'll get around to naming it soon. But we get into the episode, and he goes to check out Jabba's palace, and then he's off in the desert having dinner with his Bantha buddy, who I believe is a female Bantha, by the way, because at one point he tells her to go off and have babies. But then there's a moment where there are these exploding lights in the sky, and we hear a bit of the Mandalorian theme song. And that is very important because that sound tells us this is tied into the other show. But it also makes a callback later in the episode. Now, what we get here is basically what's happening here in the Book of Boba Fett parallels to the 5th episode of season 1 of The Mandalorian, the episode that introduces Fennec Shan and has Din Djarin go to Tatooine. So that's the connection. So by the end of this connection, basically this is the moment that he and the young bounty hunter were off trying to catch Fennec, and they used the exploding lights, the big grenade, the light grenades or whatever you want to call them, to blind her so they could get closer. That's what he sees from a distance. So we get to see the battle between them and Fennec from Boba's point of view, which he doesn't really see the battle. He sees it in the sky, that effect of it. But by the time he gets over there, they've already had the fight. Fennec has already convinced the Topo, or whatever his name was, that Grogu was the bigger bounty, and he shoots her and leaves her for dead. And the Mandalorian finds her and then heads back as well. And that's when Boba shows up. Now, there's some interesting change in sound editing, because when we see it in The Mandalorian Chapter 5, you hear the sounds of his spurs, which are a normal part of his armor. Lucas wanted him to have spurs because the character is based on the Sergio Leone character of The Man with No Name, played by Clint Eastwood. So you hear him walk, you hear the cha-ching, cha-ching of the spurs. Well, we only get like one sound of that now because we know he's not in his armor. He's in his Sand People outfit or Tusken outfit. So he goes up, he finds her, throws her on the back of the bantha, and takes her to a mod parlor. A mod parlor. It's kind of like a tattoo parlor, but it's where these mods are getting their modifications. The same as the biker gang from last episode with the brightly painted scooters, Vespas, in space. So he goes there, and we get another celebrity cameo. This is the guy playing the modifier, the mods dealer, the doctor. I don't know what term would be for him, but the guy playing him is the musician Thundercat, which is pretty cool. You know, he's in there, he's doing this thing, but also the music for that time, mod technician, sure, we'll go with mod technician. The music they're playing there is his music. So they're playing his music as he's in the scene. And Boba uses the money that he had got from the Pike to pay the mods for Fennec. Now, it's kind of understood at this point that Boba doesn't need any money. He's doing fine. He made enough money as a bounty hunter, and he's got it all stashed away. He has plenty of credits. And we find that out later in the episode, but that's why he's willing just to throw down this big bag of credits to save this woman he just met. But he may have just met her, but he recognizes her. He knows who she is. And we find that out in a minute, but the mods guy gets in there and does his work, saving her, but basically changes out her guts for all these wires and droid parts and stuff. So in a way, she might identify with the biker gang because they're all mods. She's one too, now that she's got that tech inside of her. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. And the reason that it's open like that, where, you know, like when Luke got his hand cut off, they made it as human looking as possible, but her guts are wide open. Well, that's because the modification technician, the mods technician, wants that stuff to be seen. He wants, that's part of the trend, is to get these things done and show them so that people know that you are modified. So he didn't cover it up because he doesn't want to hide all that beautiful machinery. That's his words. So basically, Boba saves her. And then she comes to out in the desert, again, by a campfire. There's a lot of Boba sitting around a campfire in this episode. It's another thing that makes me go, couldn't we have sped this up a little bit? Just kind of condensed some of this stuff and gotten the things going a little faster, maybe? Did we need 27 scenes of him in a Bacta tank? So she wakes up and we find out that he knows that she's Fennec Shand. He recognizes her. He tells her that he's Boba Fett, and she's a little disbelieving because to her, Boba's dead. But she basically owes him her life. And he says, well, what I need is help getting my guns or my fire spray gunship out of Jabba's palace. And she says, why don't you just ask for it? And he says, because I'm afraid I wouldn't like the answer. So that's what happened. He finds Fennec, gets her fixed, gets her healthy, and then wants her to help him get his ship back. And we're going to take a break. We're at the halfway point, so we'll take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll talk about the rest of the episode in just a minute. Be right back.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
All right, I just watched that joke commercial, the one about that girl is straight, or that look is straight fire girl. My God, JD, that's a deep cut that you're referencing Frankie Ray. Man. Impressive, but a deep cut. All right. Before we jump back in, there was something I forgot to mention about my earlier story. The actress that I caught and had that moment with, India Summer, it turns out her and I have one other thing in common, or have something in common. We both have appeared on the Dexter television series. I was in season 2. I believe she was in season 5, if it's what I saw was correct. But yeah. So, and for those of you who don't know, I was a dead body on Dexter in the 2nd season. I'll tell that story one day if you guys really want it. All right. Oh, JD says, I've been waiting for someone to get that. Yeah. As soon as I saw Miss Ray, I'm like, Frankie Ray. Okay. Wow. That's a deep cut. All right, let's get back to the Book of Boba Fett. I forgot earlier to have JD run the spoiler warning, but I do love it, so let's roll it now. All right, we are talking Book of Boba Fett. We just got to the point where he's made a deal with Fennec to have her help him get the gunship back, the fire spray gunship. And we see them go to Jabba's palace. And they've got this little circular ball droid that, kind of like a drone. They send in, and he flies around the Jabba's palace, which pretty much just goes to show us more areas of Jabba's palace that we've never seen before, which are pretty cool. I like that a lot. I kind of thought it was neat to, as we continue to build on this building that's been around since 1983. So that's kind of cool. But he comes back and they figure out that there's too many guards to do a frontal assault. They're going to have to sneak in through a sewer system and come up through the kitchen, and that's their plan. So they start doing this. And when they come up through the kitchen, we see 2 interesting droids that are working as chefs. Now, I don't remember what the names of the droids are. I'm not that great with droid stuff. But one of them is the same droid that was the bartender in the cantina when Mando met the kid. So it's that same type of droid, and he gets taken out pretty quickly. But then there's another one, which is a 6-armed chef. It's a chef droid, which first showed up in one of the prequel movies. Well, he has this General Grievous moment when Boba shows up and he wants to fight him, and he starts spinning all of these knives and cleavers and stuff like General Grievous. But instead of fighting Boba, Fennec Shand walks up behind him and does the equivalent of slitting the droid's throat, which is a very disturbing image. It's the same thing she used to cut the bars on the sewer, but to see it go through a droid's neck just kind of makes it creepy. So, and then they had also called a rat catcher because they thought the noise of Fennec and Boba breaking in were rats. So this little lep droid comes in. It's kind of like a rabbit-looking thing, and starts running around. You get this Ratatouille-like chase through the kitchen, and then when he finally catches it, thanks to Fennec, he tells him, "I am Boba Fett," and the droid just goes, "Ah!" and turns itself off. It was a very weird moment. I didn't know that droids had off switches, let alone when they, could they do it themselves? But JD says the comedy beats in the show just do not work for me. I get that. I know a lot of people have problems with the show. People are saying it's not moving fast enough. Boba is not the Boba we expect, but this is a Boba who was. It's hard to tell by watching this episode, but just how long he was in the Sarlacc pit. It doesn't sound like it was he got in there and he got his way out right away. It sounds like he was in there a while to fight his way out. And then it sounds like he was with the Tuskens for a long time. So he's changed quite a bit. And we do get that. We get that from him that he wants to be something more than a bounty hunter. And that's part of that comes up later in the episode, but let's go ahead and finish on the on breaking into Jabba's palace, or Bib Fortuna's palace at this point. They get in there to get to the ship, and of course the alarms go off eventually, and they're having to fight their way out, and Boba gets in the ship and he's trying to turn it, and it gets wedged in there a little bit, kind of like that little electric cart from the Austin Powers movie, where he's just kind of trying to get out. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of. But Fennec is taking everybody out. She shoots a gunk droid, which explodes big time. So I know some people are very upset because gunk droids are innocent. They don't deserve to be shot. So, and then the rest of the show continues forward. They get the ship, and Fennec ends up shooting a counterweight to get the door open and gets them out. And they head off, and first thing he says is, "Okay, you've done what you promised. Where would you like to be dropped off?" And she's like, "Nah, I think I'll stick around for the ride." Well, he then immediately goes and blows the crap out of the biker gang, the Kenton Striders, I think they're called, the Nikto biker gang that is supposed to have killed the Tuskens. But she does throw a little shade on that idea. She says it's hard to fathom that the Tuskens were killed by those guys. So that's probably going to come back, and we're going to find out later on that that wasn't the case. So, but that's important. And then they go to the Sarlacc pit. Now, we saw that Boba climbed out of the pit, then had his armor removed by Jawas, and as he tried to react to it, got knocked out. He doesn't remember that. He thinks that his armor is still in the Sarlacc pit, and we get one of the strangest scenes as he tries to get the fire spray. I'm going to keep using that name since I don't want to use Slave One anymore. As close to the Sarlacc pit as possible, to the point where the canopy is like that far above, or the cockpit is that far above the opening of the Sarlacc pit. If I had got pulled into a Sarlacc pit once, I would never go that close to it ever again. I don't know what he's thinking. But he's also trying to shine a light in there to see if he can find his armor. Well, of course, the Sarlacc's not dead. And that beak that we saw in the revised editions that they put out but we didn't see last week or when he climbed out. It comes up, it starts attacking the ship, and I do like the scene between him and Fennec here as she releases her seatbelt, crawls over, and hits the button to drop that sonic weapon, that sonic bomb. It tumbles down because it's launched from the back. It kind of rolls down and into the Sarlacc pit. It goes in the Sarlacc's mouth, and then when it goes off, and we finally come back, and they're free, and Boba looks over at her and goes, "Next time, don't touch my buttons." By the way, that's a horrible Tamora Morrison imitation, but so basically he's, don't touch my buttons. Really? She just saved your ass. But yeah, so from there, they go and have another campfire. And he talks about how he's tired of working for idiots and getting their kind of people killed over and over again. That he says the bounty hunters are smart, and a little forethinking or a little thought would prevent a lot of death. And he doesn't see the people who currently are in power as being able to do that, to have the forethought. So that's why he wants to be the daimyo. That's why he wants to be the head of the crime family on Tatooine, because he thinks that they can make a lot of money without getting people killed. And he thinks he can do it better. But he also believes, at one point she accuses him of his time with the Tuskens having made him soft. And he says, no, it has made me strong. And he now believes that you are stronger with a tribe, like the tribe he had been living with. His connection to the Sand People, to the Tuskens. And that's what he wants to do now. And Fennec, he basically asks Fennec to stay and work with him because he needs muscle and brains, and she has both, according to him. And he offers her loyalty, that he pledges to keep her alive, or to do everything he can to keep her safe. So it's kind of an interesting setup, in that it's more of a family type setup where I've got your back, you've got mine, where most of the bounty hunters are kind of all in it for themselves. They don't really watch out for each other. So it's an interesting setup that Boba wants to do, and I could see why somebody like Fennec would be attracted to it. And hopefully other bounty hunters, because he's going to need to build his army. But so we come out of that flashback, and we get this thing where he comes out of the Bacta tank, and all the flashbacks are surrounded by the Bacta tank thing. But when he comes out, the droid says, "Congratulations, Lord Fett, you are now fully healed," which I think is a nod to all of the viewers that, look, we're done. The flashbacks are done. We got everybody caught up. We know why Fennec is with him. We got everything you need. We even did a little quick scene of him taking over the throne with Bib Fortuna. We're done with the flashbacks. Thank you for playing. And then we get the modern day stuff. And, Boba talks about how he needs to be seen. And he decides to go into town. And he's not in town very long. The only thing he does when he's in town is he goes to Sanctuary, Garsa Fwip's place. And I'm not sure why he went there, because all we see is he gets there. And when he walks in, we see Black Chrysanthemum is there, having drank a lot. And basically is watching a bunch of Trandoshans have a great time. Well, if you don't know this, Wookiees and Trandoshans are mortal enemies. They hate each other. Trandoshans hunt Wookiees for their pelts. They go to Kashyyyk to steal Wookiees, to capture Wookiees, to kill Wookiees. So there's no love lost between the two. So Black Chrysanthemum's had a bad day. He got his butt kicked. He got fired. He probably didn't get paid by the twins. So he's not doing very good. So he's watching these guys have this great time, and it just gets to him, and he ends up attacking them and throwing them around, and finally gets one by the throat. And Garza comes out, and she's like, "Oh, Santo, Santo, relax, relax. You are above this now. We all respect you for your time in the gladiator pits." And she starts playing up his ego. And it's like, "But you don't need to do this. This is beneath you now. It is a simpler time. It's a better time. So just calm down. And you know what? I'm going to wipe, if you let him down, end this now, I'll wipe away your bar tab," which I guess had become considerable at that point. And Santo just simply goes, rips the Trandoshion's arm off, throws him to the ground, and she just kind of shakes her head, and Boba's like, it was worth a shot. So Chrysanthemum heads out, and Boba follows, and basically says, "Hey, you need work, I need muscle. Why don't you come work for me?" Now, yeah, I agree with JD. He says, I think the scene was there to show us Jennifer Beals' character's power. Yeah, she can be very persuasive. And Kyle says, best moment in the whole episode. Yeah, the Black Chrysanthemum is one of my favorite parts of this series. And I love the fact that he's now working with Boba. But again, see, this is a scene that they could have easily skipped, even though it was a great scene, by just when the twins said, "Sell him back to the gladiator pit," and Boba goes, "Well, you can leave, or you could work for me." He could have done it right there, and then you didn't need that scene. You could have condensed this down a little bit. But anyway, but it was a fun scene. Now, from there, we finally get the meeting that we've been waiting for from the trailers, where you have the Transdoshans, the Aqualesh, and I cannot think of the third race, but they're the three races that have taken over. Might be the Nictus, but I think it's something different. But the three races that have taken over Mos Espa. And they're at this table, and it's like a scene from The Godfather. And you've got Fennec is kind of setting it up by talking up Boba's accomplishments and how they should all, worship him and be, and then he talks about how, look, I don't need tribute. I don't need cut. I just, at first he basically wants their help in fighting the Pike that are coming. And they're like, we make a lot of money off of the spice trade, so that's not really in our best interest. So he says, look, as long as you guys remain neutral in the upcoming fight, I'll be fine. But at one point, one of them goes, why should you be Daimyo? Why should we be afraid of you? And almost as on cue, we realize they're sitting on top of the Rancor pit. And he's got a Rancor again. And the creature kind of just claws come through. He jumps up on, or however it works, but he gets on it and scares the hell out of all the people at the table, except for Boba and Fennec, who kind of expected that. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. He must be hungry. And he pulls this big bone with meat on it and shoves it through the grating to the Rancor. He's like, please, everybody, sit. And it's that scared moment, the lizard, the angry puppies, and the butt mouse. That's how JD describes the group at the table there. But yeah, he has that moment with the Rancor, and I'm pretty sure Danny Trejo's character was probably underneath going, okay, get angry, go. Okay, calm down. We're good now. Have your snack, controlling it. But it was a good moment. Because after that, all the families are like, yeah, we could stay neutral. We could absolutely stay out of it. No problem. We'll just do our business. We won't get involved. It's good. We're good. Yeah. You and your Rancor, you're fine. And at the end of by the way, you've got, Black Chrysanthemum with his big gun standing there watching them. So there's a good reason for them to stay neutral, So they go off, and Fennec and Boba have this moment where they're looking out over the Dune Sea from the balcony of Jabba's palace. Did you know it had a balcony? It's a lovely view. I got to tell you, if this was on Zillow, this would be a very expensive palace. So they're looking out over the Dune Sea, and she says, "Do you expect them to honor what they said?" And he goes, "No, I expect them to stay true to their own self-interest. So as long as their self-interests play along with his, they'll be fine." And she says, "Well, how much money do we have, or how much treasure do we have?" And he says, "I've got plenty of credits." And again, that's probably from years and years of bounty hunting, being one of the best bounty hunters. He probably has stored all this away, because other than the repairs on his ship, what does he really spend his money on? So he basically tells her, "Yeah, we've got money. What do you need?" And she says, "Well, he says, but what we need is muscle." She says, "Well, you can get muscle if you know where to ask." And that was the second time in the episode that the music from The Mandalorian played. It's the classic opening line from Mandalorian, which tells me that her plan is to get Mando, is to get Din Djarin and whoever might come with him. But I think it's also a good setup for the idea of getting other bounty hunters, because they could go to Grief Karga and ask him to find some bounty hunters, stuff like that, and bring a collective of bounty hunters together, in which case there's a chance we might get some classic ones. We might get to see Bosk and IG-88 and Dengar and Forlom and Zuckuss and, Cad Bane. And, there's a ton of bounty hunters in the Star Wars universe that it would be a lot of fun for them to introduce. JD says, "Is it possible that this was supposed to be less episodes and Disney stretched it out?" It was always supposed to be 6, and suddenly they made it 7. So I wonder if there's stuff they added to get a 7th episode because they felt it was necessary for setup. I don't know. But it is possible that it got stretched out, because it does seem like things are stretched, We probably should have been at this point last week, at least, because the halfway point, it's a lot of padding. So, and a lot of bait and switch, Ooh, Black Chrysanthemum's going to be the big bad guy. No, he's not. The twins are going to be the big bad. No. We've already, it's the Pike again, but we've already humiliated the Pike with the train robbery. So how are we supposed to take them as the big bad seriously? They spent a lot of time showing us why Boba Fett is different than what we expect, yet we still get the moments of old Boba Fett. Him flying through the desert, finding the Clinton Striders and blowing them out of out of the sky, just annihilating them. That's old Boba Fett. That's old school Boba Fett. That's the type of thing we expect from Boba Fett. Not this peace and love and let's have a tribe. But we kind of get the idea that he just thinks that it would be better, and he doesn't want to work for scug holes anymore, which is a term he used in episode 3 to describe the twins. And I could see that being tempting to bounty hunters. So that's why I think maybe he's going to pull together a bunch of bounty hunters, especially the ones he's got familiarity with, to do this fight. Now, how many people he's going to need to take on the Pike Syndicate? I don't know. Are we talking about Bo-Katan and the entire Night's Watch coming in? Are we just talking about Mando? Maybe Bill Burr's character comes back for this. Maybe some of the old bounty hunters from the Empire, some from the extended universe. I think it could be interesting. They almost go like a Magnificent Seven type setup, taking on, where he's got a handful of people, but they're better than the average Pike. So one Black Chrysanthemum is worth about 30 Pike type of thing. I'm curious where they're going to go next. I really am. The episode was real slow to me, and when something does happen, I like it, but it just does seem like it's grinding and grinding and grinding. And we've had 4 episodes that probably could have been done in 3, maybe even 2. So we'll have to see how they finish up. They could just go out and do 3 banger episodes to end the season, in which case nobody's going to talk about how slow the beginning was. They're going to be talking about the last 3. Hopefully that'll be the case. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. It was fun talking Book of Boba Fett. We will be back next week with Peacemaker on Tuesday, Kara Nicole on Wednesday, and more Book of Boba Fett on Thursday. Stick around tonight for What's in the Box with Miss Jen, a interview with Nicole Fernandez, and also Kicking It with Omri later tonight. And also remember to check out the Karma Kickstarter. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great week. I'll probably be around this weekend at some point once Kyle tells me when he wants me on for the expo this weekend. But we'll go from there. Have a great weekend. I'll see you soon. Good night, everybody.